Okay, so hopefully it's not too windy. So here we are out at the engine for the sprinkler. Just to show you the, oops, I'll do it this way. Number plate on this. This is actually how you can look up parts. Note that the 2 after 21270, that 2 is actually, you actually need that to look up parts. It's 212702 0119E1. And you can find any part for this on the Briggs and Stratton website. So if we're trying to remove the carburetor, it's right there, we need to remove a handful of things first. First thing to check is make sure your fuel line is set to off. It is currently set to off. Close enough to off, yes. And then we need to remove the fuel tank from the side of the machine. And to do that, it is a 14 millimeter or 9/16. I have this weird combined set. It is SE and metric. There are 2 bolts inside of the fuel tank. And I put them on there pretty tight last time. Just undo them until the fuel tank comes free. Comes free. Normally the fuel line would be over that bracket. You should put it back over that bracket. I just pulled this off the other day. I didn't put it back on there, so it's just a note. Just do that. You can put it over here on this guy. You can see the carburetor a bit better. So there are 2 bolts holding the intake manifold on. Those are smaller. I'll show you those in a second. But first we should remove the fuel line from the side, and then we can start undoing those bolts. So for the fuel line, just need a pair of pliers. I have these ring snap pliers, but any pair of regular pliers will do the trick just fine. And little bunny ears on there. Squeeze them together, and then you can kind of pull that back, clamp on it, and then in this case the fuel line just kind of pops off. You can put a fuel in there. To do that, you want a 10 millimeter or a 3/8 inch, depending on what you got. Sorry, trying to do this while filming. Okay, crack them. Okay, and then these are a little easier to get off by hand. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take the extension bit that I have and just unscrew my hand here. There's 2. Now then, this is the part gets a little trickier because you have the spring for the throttle cable, and there's a little, it's actually just a bent piece of metal that does the shutoff/choke. At the moment it's just held on by this gasket into the air cleaner. It's up here. So if you can kind of wiggle it out, and then you're there, then you have to undo that, and that will just kind of come with. There's also a return spring that is that smaller line that's there. You can see that going up there. Those need to be in position there on the throttle linkage. Okay, I am actually going to pause this to do this because it's very much a two-handed job. Okay, alright, got that out. It's just a little bit finicky. You can see that linkage for the shut-off choke is still just on there because it just kind of slides into that little bracket up there. It's not actually connected to anything. There's just a little push rod that happens there. So you can kind of leave the system like this. Oh, one thing though, since this is the intake manifold and since lots of little critters live out here, it's a good idea to just shove a paper towel or whatever into that hole. All right, just pop that in there. It keeps it from getting crap in there. All right, and then we're gonna go into the shed to show the rest. Okay, back here in the garage. So there are two little nuts on the end of here that we need to get, and that is with an 11 millimeter or 7/16 inch socket. Okay, we also have to remember that this, when it comes off, is full of fuel, so I'm going to try not to tip it over while I am doing this. Actually, draining the fuel out might be a better choice. Hang on. Drain the fuel out first. Okay, I actually drained the fuel out and I pre-cracked these because it was definitely a two-handed operation on that as well. So, I'm going to get those off. It's really windy outside. One. Okay. That wasn't quite loose enough. Okay, and with the other loose there, you can see it's about to come off. The air cleaner side. Okay, and here you can see the choke / engine cutoff, which actually mostly is cut off by the fuel being cut off, but there's the choke side. Okay, so once you're inside here, you can see that the screws kind of screw in a slightly different way. You can get, it's an 8 millimeter or 5/16 on here, and it untwists that way, and it becomes loose enough you can just kind of do it yourself there. Pop that out. Same for the other side. See, now the intake manifold is loose. And one-handed shooting, not particularly adept at. That's also known after Kodiak. Okay, now we have the whole carburetor out. So there's a butterfly valve, venturi for feeding fuel, and the choke side. And you're going to take the choke line off, just done like that, easy. And now it is free. I am actually going to partially disassemble this and put it back together and test it in a second, but that is how you disassemble the intake system on this particular Briggs and Stratton engine. All right, we kind of have it back together, and we're going to start reassembling this. So I have one of these long screws. So it has the nut on the shorter end. On the black end, which has the the black lever on the top. Start feeding this in this side. It comes out the other side there, where it then threads into the intake manifold. I'm going to show that a little bit more attached here in just a second. This is not a job I can do one-handed very easily, but you basically want to take both of them, slide them in from the side with the choke rather than the side that has the adjustable throttle spring there. Okay, so you just thread these in by hand, get that up on there, thread them in by hand until they're nice and snug. All right, I'm going to tighten that down and then show you putting on the air cleaner side. Okay, just kind of put the air cleaner side on the threads. I've got these sort of screwed on there just a little bit. Tighten them down with the 11 millimeter or 7/16, and it should be good to go. Okay, it's on there. Just kind of note that you want to sort of tighten it down a little bit on one side and a little bit on the other side in all these cases, because it needs to set up a nice seal. So just give it a little tighten until it feels like it's good and snug in there. Don't give it, you know, super strength or anything. Again, it's all kind of plastic and brass, and it will deform or break if you tighten it down too hard. Once you're done with that, this little return spring guy goes on the underside of there. And we're ready to start reinstalling it on the engine. Note, this is what it will look like from the engine side. From the side of the engine where you can access it, the intake manifold should be facing away from you, and the air cleaner arm should be pointed upward. Okay, so I actually came out here and tested to see if little work I did on the carburetor actually fixed the leak problem, and it did not. And then the wind came up and it blew it onto the ground. So we're going to take the cloth that's in there. I put the nuts back so they wouldn't blow away in the wind. The bolts back so they wouldn't blow away in the wind. We're going to take that cloth, clean off where got stuff on there and stuck to the gasoline that was pouring out of it, and get this reinstalled. Oh, one thing to note, beyond, wow, that wind is really coming up. Beyond the throttle linkage cables that you can see there, there's a little hose. It's either some kind of vacuum or takes blow by from the cylinder head and puts it into the carburetor. I don't actually know which, but you want to hook that up to that little port there on the intake side, the air intake side. All right, one sec. Oh, also almost missed it because this came off when I was just taking it off the last time, but there's a gasket that's supposed to be on the air intake side. It needs to be around there. I found it in the dirt, and it just fits up inside the air cleaner there, and make sure that no dust gets in that way. Okay, so now I'm going to remove those bolts from there to get ready, and I'm going to show you what the linkage should look like when we're set up to start actually reinstalling this, because I can't do that with one hand. Okay, sorry about the wind. The linkage should look like that. You have the big one in the hole with the grommet, and you have the little one, little return spring. In the smaller hole, you have the choke cable guy is still sitting there. It's going to go inside up there where you can kind of see a similar sort of cutout. I'm going to get this partially installed and show you what it all looks like partially installed. Okay, of note, the little paperclip looking guy that goes up there for the choke, it goes in first before you put the hose in the back onto the carburetor. Okay, hose is on the back, kind of see it, just sort of sticks on there. Then we align it. You have to push this end behind that bracket first, otherwise it won't fit. So you pop it in there, that aligned, get it aligned up here, air cleaner box, and just kind of push it until it seats. Okay, I misspoke. That orange gasket doesn't go on here. That orange gasket goes on the intake manifold. That popped off. This, you'll have to get a replacement for this. This rubber O-ring burst, or well, broke anyway, and it goes on here to keep the dirt out of the engine. I'm not sure it's going to be able to get up there, but yeah, there was no way I was getting that on there with the other gasket, which is supposed to go right there, and it just kind of attaches to the front. So there's a little orange gasket in there that needs to go up against that when we install this. And this sad little rubber O-ring here goes on there, and that'll need to be replaced to get this thing running really nicely. It will run fine, it just might suck in a little bit of dust from time to time with that being broken. Okay, I managed to get in there with that gasket. Okay, so you're gonna have to sort of push it up against there, get these bolts started, then tighten them down with the 10mm socket. I'm just doing it by hand until it gets tight enough that I need the actual ratchet on there. Once you get those pretty good and tight, move on to installing the fuel line. So just one sec, I'm gonna do this right back. Okay, so those have been put in, they're snugged up. Let's grab our pliers again. Fuel line, shove it back onto there. Find little pigtails on there. Kind of see it around the back. Squeeze. You just kind of gotta wiggle it up so it's over the little fuel nipple thing. Okay, so now it's back installed. We just need to put the fuel tank back on, which means we need the 14mm, yeah, 14mm 9/16 inch socket. Deep socket makes this a lot easier if you have them, or an extension. But pretty much just line this guy up over here. And kind of offer it up to that. It's sort of has this backing on it that fits really nicely over there. You can see that at all, but yeah, it works pretty easy. And then you just have to put some pressure on the bolts to make sure they seat, and you can look around the back to make sure that they're seating right. If you've given it a good 20-30 turns, they don't seem to be going in, you might have to adjust it up or down a little bit to reach the bracket better. And that is pretty much it. Okay, I have that in. You should see when this is all done and it's done correctly. When you pull on the throttle arm, you should see these guys moving around. Oops, not showing it very well, am I? And okay, on this guy's. There we go. Okay. Yeah, that's another thing, is the sort of return spring for the choke isn't really springing anymore. That's something I could have cleaned up, but I wasn't really able to deal with the fuel problem. Since it's being replaced anyway, I didn't actually bother. But what should happen is when you turn the throttle on, this should just kind of pivot that way. on its own, which opens up the choke. And then when you close it all the way, it should, well, maybe pushed a little too far there. It should close that choke up. Yeah, like that. With this little arm and that little thing there. Okay, hopefully that is comprehensive enough, not too comprehensive. I'm leaving the fuel off for the moment because it will just spill all over the place and you'll be out of fuel. And also it'll get up in the cylinder head and get into the sump and, you know, not make the engine very happy. But that is it. That is how you remove, replace, and reinstall the carburetor on the PowerBuilt 9.0 horsepower or the Briggs & Stratton 212702-0119-E1 vertical engine.